Video game adaptations have been on the rise lately, and honestly, they have been getting better than they were back in like the 2000s and early 2010s, but there are still some iconic franchises that have not had adaptations yet, so let's talk about some iconic games that need to be adapted to the movies or the TV shows. What's up everybody, welcome to the channel. I am Nick, and today we're going to be doing video games that I think would make very good adaptations for movies or TV. Now, one thing I'm going to say before we get into this list is that I am only picking games that haven't had an adaptation or haven't had one in the works just yet. So something like Legend of Zelda or Horizon Zero Dawn, those games have something in the works right now, so I am not putting those on the list. But with that said, let's begin. So the first game that I want to talk about today is Celeste, which is one of my personal favorite games, so that's kind of why it's on the list. I just want to see a Celeste movie, but I truly do think there's a lot of potential in this game that would make for a very entertaining film. Already with the story, it's very emotionally rich, and the character development here is just absolutely astounding. Obviously, the way it was made, like indie game, like the creator obviously put so much care into the story that I don't think would exactly be replicated, but I think with the right people, the story can still be handled very well as a movie and keeping all the subtlety within it. And especially with the character interactions, like obviously Madeline is such a well-written character, and that relationship with our villain in the game, like Part of Me, I think was the like exact name for that character, but just the other people she's interacting with, I think just brings for a lot of cool character moments we can have in this. But I think the main draw here is the world, where I truly think it's been a very long time since we've had a truly great mountain climbing movie from Hollywood. I did very much enjoy The Summit of the Gods on Netflix a couple years ago, but outside of that one, I really don't remember a great mountain movie. But I think Celeste can really deliver it because of just how eye-popping the visuals are, but just the way that it's kind of broken up. You get that whole creepy hotel sequence in the middle that I think would be truly awesome to see in the big screen, and it would be nice to, I'm saying big screen so much, but it would be nice to have that kind of break up the mountain climbing atmosphere and everything, where yes, it's a mountain, so of course we're going to be seeing a bunch of snow and everything the whole time, but for visually, it would break up how we see the film and everything. But truly, I think this would deliver some of the best character development in a video game adaptation in a very long time. So I think it's the story that really propels this to something I think would be great to see as a movie. The only reservation I have is because of how much care was put into it by the developer of the game. How well would that be replicated as a movie? But I think, again, with the right people, Celeste could be a very great movie. Now, the next game I'm going to talk about stays in the indie world. We're going to be talking about Mouthwashing. Now, the second I finished playing Mouthwashing, I thought this would be a really fun movie, because the game obviously it's a video game, but it plays like a movie that you're interacting with. And Iron Lung's success is also what made me really want to put this on the list, because they're both like pixelated, short, indie horror games. And with how successful Iron Lung was, now granted, Markiplier was a big part of like the marketing push towards Iron Lung being big, but I think Mouthwashing itself is a game that I think the story is enough to be a very interesting film. You already have this tight, desolate atmosphere that's filled with uncertainty and is just a prime horror movie selling point. You're trapped in this location, you're hallucinating all of these random things, so the horror really comes in from the characters and what they're seeing from all this mouthwash on the like ship and everything. But I also think just getting a guy like James Wan to direct it, who did The Conjuring, where this guy is so used to doing like these tight atmospheres, obviously Conjuring, but he's very good at getting that trippy, over-the-top stuff. Like Malignant was very over-the-top, and I enjoyed that movie. So getting someone like James Wan, I think, can really bring Mouthwashing and keep the original developers to stay true to the story there. But it is the story that I think would also be a very great movie. You have the atmosphere already, but those characters are very well explored in the game, and kind of a similar thing to Celeste, where the characters, I think, would drive the story a lot. But Mouthwashing, again, it is a video game that plays a lot like a movie and how you're interacting with everything. So Mouthwashing is truly a game that I would love to see turn into a movie. Now for the next game, we're going to switch it up to Nintendo with F-Zero. Now this is a game that I really don't think that there isn't really any story in this game, so you're going to have to do something from the ground up. However, you have a really bright cast of characters here. Like Captain Falcon, I think, is a character that like literally screams like prime action lead. He pretty much has it all to be the lead character of a film, and just have him like the Blue Falcon just going around Mute City. If they are able to pull off some racing sequences like F1 had, like that movie was incredible. Imagine if they did that with F-Zero and you see the Blue Falcon going around. But I think the visuals for this movie and like all the racetracks and everything, it's so distinctly F-Zero, and the style of the game is just very true to what it is, and there really isn't much racing game outside of that, like, that has that look. Speed Racer, the video game, a little bit, because that movie did kind of remind me of F-Zero a bit, which the resurgence of that movie is kind of why I put F-Zero on here, why it really came to mind, because the Speed Racer movie is getting so much attention right now that I think an F-Zero movie would make a lot of people very happy. Again, you're gonna have to make an original story here, but I think Captain Falcon is a character to do it. But imagine if this is like a live-action, like, blend of the Red Line movie. Like, if Red Line was in live action with the Speed Racer visuals, that's kind of what I see with an F-Zero movie and the potential there. So this is a movie that, again, the story probably wouldn't be anything special, but I think Captain Falcon is a character that would just immediately demand the screen presence, and just the look of this, F-Zero would be something awesome, in my opinion. Now for the next game, we're going to keep it in the Nintendo world with Super Smash Bros. Now yes, I said I'm not going to be doing any video games on here that have adaptations already or are in the works for an adaptation. Super Smash Bros., yeah, we all know it's happening, but it's not announced yet, but I just want to throw it out here that Nintendo Infinity War would be so cool, and like some of the villains that Smash Bros. Has would just be this incredible, like, overarching, like, ending of the world thing. But seeing Mario, Link, Kirby, like, Donkey Kong, all of these characters, Star Fox, and bring Captain Falcon in if they make that F-Zero movie before this, but all these characters would be so cool to watch in a Super Smash Bros. Movie. Just, it would be epic to see, and obviously they are probably building up to this the way that they're incorporating different characters, like Star Fox was in the Galaxy movie. So, just Super Smash Bros. The movie, we know it's happening. It's not announced yet, so I'm throwing it on here because I wanted another entry here, but Super Smash Bros., we all want it. I want it really badly. But now we're going to go to movies that definitely are not in talks for anything. A Plague Tale, and really, I want to stick to Innocence for the first film, and then obviously Requiem. Any movie studios watching, A Plague Tale has 2 games right now, so if the first one does well, there's franchise potential here, so keep that in mind, any studio that's watching. No studio is watching this video. But The Black Plague, I think, is just such an interesting point in history that I don't think a lot of movies have tackled. Like, yes, a lot of movies have had the Black Plague in it or as a backdrop, but movies that are very much in this world, I feel like it would be really cool to see one, like, nowadays, and Plague Tale is the movie to do it. The sibling dynamic creates a very great emotional draw here, but there's 2 points of tension that I think would come together, like, very nicely to make just this tension-fueled, emotionally driven story work, where, of course, you have this being set in the Black Plague, but what's really, like, the main antagonizing force here is the Inquisition is hunting down this sibling pair, and just the threat of that while they're having to escape the Inquisition, going through all of these places where rats are literally everywhere. They have to pull off all of these stealth things to avoid the rats and catching the worst plague in history. But there's just so much here, like so much meat into this story that I think would be very good to see as a movie. The stealth scenes would add a lot of very nice like tension and everything and just be very entertaining to watch. But it really is just the emotional connection between these two siblings that I think would really work well here. And the ending of this game, I've only played Innocence, but the ending of Innocence gets so trippy with what it pulls off that it would shock a lot of like new audiences like to like the Plague Tale world. Like, I need to play Requiem so bad. Like, I have it now, so I do want to play it this summer, but man, like a Plague Tale movie with like just the different characters here and like I would love to see this happen. This would be really cool to see. Now the next game I want to talk about here is Stellar Blade. Now Stellar Blade, this is a personal pick because I really enjoyed Stellar Blade and no one's really been talking about it since it came out, but it was a very well received game and the world here in Stellar Blade is something very, very cool. Like, this game was a visual spectacle and the music of the game was arguably even better than that, but the story here is filled with a lot of different metaphors. Like, I'll just give an example. The two leads here are named Adam and Eve. What does that tell you? But there's just a lot of different metaphors in the game that I think just going all in, focusing on the story would be really great. But Eve, again, a very strong character, a lot of introspective parts of the game going on here that I think just hammering in on the big screen with these insane visuals with like everywhere we're going, this movie would lock in an Oscar nomination for visuals. But the game is 20 hours long, so condensing the story I think would take some work, but a lot of the game does kind of loop around, like you're doing the same mission, you're meeting the same character to get to the same thing, so seeing these things only once I think would translate well into a movie to condense the story enough to get to 2.5 hours here. But I think it would fill a void for just epic space adventures like something like Stellar Blade. Just, again, the visuals for something like this would be amazing to see in IMAX. But the action, again, it's super stylized and everything that Stellar Blade I think is just something that I think would be really cool to see. But again, the story has a lot of twists and turns. Very, like, again, filled with metaphors and everything, and the ending of the game, now the ending is like one of those player choice things, and there's multiple different ways you can take it. but there's only, and one of my complaints with Stellar Blade is there's really only one good ending, so just pick that one. So you can kind of work around that pretty easily, but Stellar Blade, again, more of a personal pick, kind of the outside-the-box pick on this list, but again, the game just looks so good, and the music, it's amazing. I would love to see Stellar Blade on the big screen, just absolutely. Just go play the game if you haven't. I really enjoyed it. Now the next game I'm going to talk about here is The Elder Scrolls, which I'm going to preface before I get into everything here. I have not played the games, so if I look like an idiot, that is exactly why. I have not played the games. But I was talking to a friend of mine about why like The Elder Scrolls hasn't been put into a movie because of how big Oblivion and Skyrim are. I was kind of surprised, again, having not played the games, so I don't know how well it would translate. Why hasn't The Elder Scrolls gotten a movie yet? Like, just, it's huge, it's been around for so long, like, this feels like something that would have been made, like, in the 2010s or something. But he said that because of how much player choice goes into the games and how that affects the story, but also the fact that these are, like, 100-hour games and exploration's a big part of it, it would be hard to just directly adapt Oblivion or Skyrim. But I was thinking over, like, I should put Elder Scrolls on this list, because what if it did an original story in the Elder Scrolls universe, the way that, like, the Fallout TV show was an original thing in the Fallout universe? Imagine, like, a 2.5 hour Elder Scrolls movie, completely original. You can pick any era of the game, like, first era, second era. You can pick any time, like, in the Elder Scrolls lore to do a movie that really hasn't been tackled in any Elder Scrolls game. I think that could be an interesting route to take a movie for this franchise. And again, without having played the games, I think there are two routes that you can take an Elder Scrolls movie. One, you can go and pick some time period that's close to the main games, like Oblivion or Skyrim. Go very close to that timeline so you can directly reference things that are about to happen in the next game or things that happened in the previous game. Just directly go into that in that time period and kind of bridge the gap in between some games that are closely put together on a timeline. Or you could go into an era that just has not been explored at all and tell an original story there to kind of bring some of that lore to the big screen for us to see. So again, this is my 2 cents without playing Elder Scrolls, but I think an original story in this universe would be something really interesting to see. Now, before we get into the final 3 games I'm going to give you, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you like the video, a clapperboard will appear, and when you subscribe, you get more awesome movie-related content like this. I'll occasionally do like a game tie-in, but it's mainly a movie channel. But if you're a gamer and you're here for the games, I would still subscribe. I want to hit that 100 sub goal by the end of the year. But with that said, let's get into the last 3. Now in a less dark place than the Elder Scrolls, I'm going to go with It Takes Two. Now I think a rom-com with these characters in this situation would be something really entertaining to see. You have them bantering and like arguing as they're going through this cooperative platforming adventure. So already the entertainment value would just come out of, you know, the platforming and the puzzles that they're going through and just this very imaginative world that they're in. But I really think just the bantering would be so funny to see for a rom-com, the tension that they have between each other. Then like near the 3rd act, they have like the fallout, and then like they can rekindle for the big finale and everything. Like that would be kind of cliche and everything, but I just think the comedy aspects of this would work really well. And like an idea I was actually thinking of, and this kind of put me in the place to put It Takes Two on this list, but look at some streams of couples playing It Takes Two and seeing the way they argued with each other playing the game, and like the arguing, like the jokes between each other. Like look at how people responded to the game itself, and then the characters from It Takes Two. Those reactions, take them a little bit and give them to the characters. Obviously keep them true to how they were in the game. Don't just make them embodiments of streamers playing It Takes Two. But that could be something interesting to kind of go into the comedy aspects of making this a rom-com. So It Takes Two, I think there is a lot of potential in here, and obviously taking the cooperative elements of the game was a big draw to it, but I think, again, there is enough to the game that would make it work very well as a movie. Now, the penultimate entry I'm going to give is Pac-Man. Now, it really is about time that Pac-Man gets a movie adaptation. He's had some TV shows, but those are more just like the Pac-Man and Ghostly Adventures things. I want to see a true Pac-Man movie adaptation. Mario and Sonic have their big franchises now, so I think it's only right the original game mascot and Pac-Man is able to have his moment on the big screen. But beyond just like the maze games, like the arcade Pac-Man, I honestly think there is enough here where we can get like a good Halloween kind of Pac-Man thing where he's like ghost hunting and everything, but I really think it's the Pac-Man World games that I don't think directly taking the stories from those is how you make the Pac-Man movie, but I think there's a lot you can draw from, especially Pac-Man World 2, to really make something work, where for fighting the ghost, giving them like the mechs that they have in Pac-Man World 2 would be something really interesting to follow, but also you could have Pac-Man hunting the ghost and like going through these like Halloween themed, like these spooky like barren trees and like everything is like all ghostly and whatever, like Halloween-esque. Like, I think you can do a lot there of a Pac-Man ghost hunting movie and maybe have a romance with Miss Pac-Man or save her for a sequel. But there's a lot you can do just with Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man together. But what I'm really talking about here, though, is you would have the ghost serving Spooky from Pac-Man World 2, like the main boss and like overarching villain of that game. There really is just so much from the Pac-Man World games that I think they can throw in here, especially the environments and everything. And again, if they wanted, they could try to put Miss Pac-Man in here for a romance, or they can kind of go the Sonic route and save her for like an end reveal to set up a sequel with Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man. So there's multiple ways you can incorporate her, and I'll be honest, I like the Miss Pac-Man game more than the Pac-Man game if we're talking like the arcade one, I'll be honest. So I would love to see her and Pac-Man together, but really, like, you can just go an original story with Pac-Man 2, which I would kind of say do an original story with elements of the Pac-Man World games, but because of the nature of what the Pac-Man franchise is, you can do anything, but I think a ghost hunting adventure, Halloween themed, maybe go into a bit horror, like kind of make it a horror comedy with Pac-Man, but obviously toned down, like kind of the Monster House situation. But really, I think infinite possibilities with what you can do with Pac-Man, and I would love to finally see him on the big screen. But the last game I'm going to mention here is Firewatch. Now, from the second that I finished Firewatch, I wanted this to be a movie very bad with how everything kind of played out. Firewatch does follow the story of a man named Henry who had just lost his wife, so he's going to take a job in the National Forest as a fire lookout, and we learn so much about him and his past and like who he is as a character through the actions he takes in the game, but mainly through those conversations he has through the walkie-talkie with his supervisor Delilah. A lot of great character interactions where we're kind of learning a lot about Delilah too through these conversations, but just the human interaction between those two really elevated the game a lot for me. But also you just have the mystery going on where Henry's like seeing these fires start, but they don't seem natural, like there is some weird plot going on here, and just the mystery that Henry's uncovering mixed with all of these different character moments that we're having, and just like the big reveals and how this plot like escalates and everything. I think Firewatch would be a very mysterious movie that we could get. I think someone like Taylor Sheridan, who did the Yellowstone series, but if we're going movies, he did write Sicario. So Taylor Sheridan 100% has the resume that I think something like this could work. He did that Those That Wish Me Dead movie with Angelina Jolie, so that was a forest fire movie. So he has some familiarity with this, even though that movie was kind of mid, but I think someone like him could tackle a Firewatch story pretty well. But casting a guy like Dave Bautista, who can play the rough and tough side of Henry, but also very much get the emotional weight, because we have really seen Dave Bautista kind of become his own as a very solid actor. Knock at the Cabin, go watch it if you haven't. It's an okay movie, but if you like Bautista, amazing performance from him in that movie. Now, it may be hard to translate a concept like this to the big screen where it's just one guy solving the mystery. He has Delilah with him, but that's only through a walkie-talkie. It may be hard to translate a first-person game that's one person talking to a walkie-talkie for the majority. Might be a little hard to translate, but I do believe that with the right person doing this film, Firewatch could make for a very entertaining and mysterious film. But with that said, those are my 10 video games that I think would be very good adaptations to movies. Make sure to drop down below in the comments what video games you would love to see turned into a movie and why you would like to see that. Thank you all for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Tune in for more movie-related content, and I will see you all later.